Hello, everybody, and welcome back in to Betting Life's college football pregame betting show. I am your host, Thor Nystrom, joined, as always, by NBC Sports' Eric Froton and the coach, Gene Clemons. Over the next 90 minutes, we're going to be going over our favorite side bets and our favorite player props, getting deep into the weeds. We will also be answering all of your questions. So if you're watching us on YouTube, you can type those questions into the chat, and we will get to them throughout the show. Go as deep as you like. We like getting dirty in the weeds. Also, if you're on YouTube, if you wouldn't mind hitting that like button, we'd appreciate it. It helps us get the word out there. If you're watching on Twitter, you don't mind sharing that link, we'd appreciate that too. Gentlemen, without further ado, let's get into this. We have a very fun card today, and we have a couple games with enormous college football playoff implications. So let's get into it. The first one, though, a bit bigger of a favorite. We have Florida traveling to Texas. Texas a 21.5-point favorite in this one. We have some news on Andrew Mukaba. I'm sorry, the safety for Texas is questionable heading into this week. And Isaiah Bond, who has been dinged up now for multiple weeks, he has been listed as probable on the Texas side. Their Texas defensive lineman Vernon Broughton is out for the first half of this game for targeting. And on the Florida side, the merciful end to Eugene Wilson's season. Eugene Wilson, another guy who was banged up week in and week out. And we have a questionable designation on DJ Lagway. I don't know that we're going to see him. It might be the freshman quarterback again. That informs a lot, I think, why this line is inflated. Gene, what do you think about this one? With all that said, Texas minus 21.5.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as if Texas has been out here just steamrolling people like left and right. They struggled to beat Vandy. We know what happened to them versus Georgia. OU's not really great this year, so that doesn't really inform anything for me. I look at this game and this spread and go, like, if you're somebody who's willing to like close their eyes and watch the game or watch a bet, like this is somewhere where you get a lot of value on Florida. Like, I think it's not, I know DJ Lagway is out, but it's not as if like DJ Lagway was lighting up the world, right? You know, the quarterback position was in flux because it hasn't really been the greatest this year. And so I look at this game and I go, this is people saying, oh, Texas is just really good based off of the fact that they think that Texas is really good, when in fact Texas might just be all right. They might just be an all right team this year. Florida, people are thinking really bad because of the blogs and you know, social media, but they're not awful. They just play against a bunch of really good teams. So for me, this 21.5, especially with the half on there, is inviting. So I'd lean Florida here if I was going to put any money down in this game, because it's just hard in these games versus teams that are actually, you know, like pretty good to hang 21 or hang 24 on somebody that easy. I think the line to me screams Florida from my end.
Yeah, and to that point, if both teams were at full strength, my line on this one would have been Texas minus 13.7. So, I mean, you're talking 8 points, although Florida, the injuries are significant. Texas has a couple too, but Froton, what I wanted to talk with you about is all these injuries, especially on the offensive side for Florida, were now down to, it appears, their third string quarterback, a guy who it's not his fault. I mean, he got thrown to the wolves against Georgia. You can't really blame him. He didn't expect to be on the field for, you know, at least a couple years. But you also have the thing of Eugene Wilson is out. Montrell Johnson, it appears he's out as well. So we're down to the backup running back as well for Florida. There's a lot of moving parts here to handicap the props in this game. Did you end up settling on any prop bets in this one? Or is this like, there are too many moving parts, I got to stay away from this one?
Well, there's certainly a lot of moving parts. And one of them, as you alluded to, is Aiden Warner. I just read a report that DJ Lagway is in warmups, but is not expected to play. The last game against Georgia, we saw the entire offense and pretty much the entire team collapse once DJ Lagway left the game. And Warner went 7 for 24 for 66 yards and an interception.
Not good, Bob.
Not good. A 36th percentile PFF passing grade. You're not going to see that very often. Yeah, that's an extreme problem. On the props front, yeah, I mean, you have to like Texas's chances. I mean, Florida ranks 125th in 20-plus yard pass plays. I mean, they've been proven to be very, very giving in terms of their secondary. I guess what I'd be looking at, frankly, is, if you can get a line on any receivers, Florida. The only ones we see out, obviously, Shamari DK. He's out there every week. He's at 45.5 yards. But even Elijah Badger, we didn't even mention him.
Oh,
you can't find a line on Elijah Badger.
Their injury report, it's this friggin' long.
There's a lot. And it's like, I'd go and advocate an under position on Shamari DK at 45.5 yards. I have a lean for that. But, I mean, who else are they going to throw to? They don't have a lot of options. Maybe your boy Arliss, the super agent from the 90s.
Why did they cancel
options? No.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you hit on it. Underdog right now, they're only putting up first quarter passing for Aiden Warner. Is Aiden Warner, is that the brother of the Rice quarterback and the son of Kurt? Or
EJ Warner? I do not believe so.
Okay.
But
we have a Manning dynasty of Warners coming through the pipeline. But yeah, I mean, tough with that one. And then you were mentioning the receiver, and I looked into that one too. Is the pronunciation DK on that last name?
DK.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, 45.5. And it's a tough one for reasonings that you're mentioning. It's like they don't have anyone else to throw to, but can they get him the ball? And that guy's a deep ball guy too. So it's like, are you going to manufacture touches for him? This is tough. I wish we had lines up for some of the secondary, like slot receiver guys, like that Tank Hawkins guy. I imagine is going to play in this one, but they're not going to toss him up. They have one up for the backup running back on Florida. I am staying miles away from the props in this one.
It's tough to see.
I'm and as far as this side, I got to be honest, I would lean with Gene's read on it. Like, I mean, with the 21.5, if I had to bet it, I'm not going to bet it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, there's too many guys out here. But if I had to, the 21.5 with Florida, they've at least been giving Billy Napier effort. And I thought it was really interesting over this past week that Florida comes out and is like, Billy Napier is going to be our coach going forward. Now, they didn't say it didn't say next year. They just said going forward. They're obviously trying to help Billy Napier with recruiting, in closing out this cycle. And then also, with this team, like, we're not going to fire him, whatever. Maybe you get a little bit extra motivation there. But yeah, this one is a stay away for all those different reasons. Boys, let's move on to our next SEC game. This is a 3:30 Eastern kick. Ole Miss, and this is one with enormous CFP implications. Ole Miss hosting Georgia. This line has come down to 2. Georgia -2 as we move in on game day and kickoff here. Gene, big matchup here. Who do you like in Georgia Ole Miss?
This is another opportunity. Like, can Lane Kiffin break through? Right, like that.
Yep.
These are the ones that Lane Kiffin hasn't been able to get the job done, for whatever reason. And I think for him and his quarterback, it's going to be very important for them to come out and have success early. By the way, really crazy to think about, but if you look at the recruiting class that Georgia's putting together this year, especially with like perimeter receiver help, teams might want to get them this year. They might want to jump on them this year. If they let them get those boys in the locker room, it's going to be ugly. They've got some really, really talented wide receivers coming in next year. Just an aside, but for me, I look at this and I just go, which Georgia are we getting, right? Like, are we going to get the Georgia that turns the ball over all the time? Because if so, then give me Ole Miss. Or are we going to get the Georgia that settled and knows how to like advance the ball and takes advantage of an explosive when they have it? This is the one thing I'll say. Ole Miss won't implode like Florida imploded. So if you give Ole Miss the lead like you gave Florida, it's a wrap for you. Like, you're not going to win it. And from that standpoint, especially with Ole Miss being at home, I'll roll a dice on Lane Kiffin one more time to see if he can get this thing done. I just don't like this Georgia team this year. I don't think they're playing the best.
Gene, let me ask you a follow-up question. In the futures market, you look at the Heisman, Jackson Dart, I believe it was 20 to 1 or 20 something to 1. One of the long shots now, right? He leads the nation in passing. He also has solid rushing stats, and he's put up a ton of touchdowns. If Ole Miss were to win, to upset Georgia today, and then they win out, certainly they're, well, obviously if they won out, that, including the SEC title game, they would get into the college football playoff. But they would be right in play again. Do you think in the futures market, if you agree with your stance about Ole Miss, do you think it would be worth putting a partial unit on Jackson Dart to win the Heisman, on the idea that they could potentially make a rally? Because if Ole Miss makes the college football playoff and then you have the quarterback with the best counting stats, you have to be in New York, right?
Yeah, and I think what's gonna help him is, I don't know if the voting public I don't know if they're in love with Cam Ward, right? I don't know if they're going to respect the schedule of a Gene T. So when you look at what Jackson Dart has to go through in order to get to, New York as a Heisman candidate, his road is going to look a lot more arduous. If you remember, around this time last year, people still didn't think that Jaden Daniels would win the Heisman.
For sure.
Right? So if Jaden Daniels can make that late push, that late run, and end up with a Heisman, there's no reason why Jackson Dart can't, because he's going to have, like you said, he's going to most likely be at the top of every accounting stat that you have.
I love that comparison you make between the two situations, because you were discounting Daniels for the same reason. At this point last year, they had
two losses, maybe. Yeah,
exactly. But statistically, it was the same sort of a deal. And I think if they get into the college football playoff, like, how is he not at the very top of that discussion, right? Like,
yeah, it's definitely a bet worth it. It's worth putting a half unit down on and seeing what happens, especially with those odds being where they are right now.
Now, Froton, for Ole Miss to get the Jackson Dart is going to have Heisman moment kind of a game, because speaking of laundry list, injury list, we have one on the Ole Miss side. They listed 26 guys on their injury report this week. Like, Lane Kiffin was going nuts with this. Now, 15 of those 26 were probable. So however you want to see that, but we have on the questionable side for Ole Miss, their starting center, Reese McIntyre, starting defensive end, Jared Ivey, starting safety, Yam Banks, Caden Lee, Jaden Kennedy, JJ Peggs. And then Jordan Watkins is also questionable. He was upgraded to questionable. He was doubtful earlier. Trey Harris is amongst the questionable guys. Lot of questionable guys on the Ole Miss side. A lot of injuries there. And then on the Georgia side, Trevor Etienne not listed on the injury report, so that's good news for them. And then Smail Munden, their standout linebacker, he was upgraded to questionable. He has been out since week 5. We'll see if we get him today. In the prop market, Froton, this is a really interesting handicap here. Where are you at with this one?
Well, there's a few different ways that we really have to look at. First off, as you mentioned with Ole Miss, plenty of injury designations. One injury designation we do not have on the depth chart is Henry Parrish, the starting running back, who is out. He's not on the depth chart. He is injured, will not play. Also, Trey Harris looking, I don't know, probably doubtful. I don't think he'll probably be playing. That's an issue, because who are they going to throw out there as far as the wide receivers? Luckily, Caden Lee was upgraded to probable. He was questionable to play pretty much all week. He actually leads the SEC in explosive pass plays, believe it or not. And he's only a sophomore, so he will be playing that Trey Harris role. So that's definitely something I'm looking at. You only got Antwain Wells out there in terms of props, though, on the Ole Miss side for receiving. And he's like right at 49.5. Last week, 58.5. My God, that guy. They were killing the team they were playing last week, and Wells was under the whole time. He caught a pass. Arkansas. He caught a pass on the last drive. I don't know why they were throwing. They were killing Arkansas. to beat me, and it's the pain. I know
Kiffin.
you can still feel the pain coming from me here from that loss. He had 59 yards. I wanted to cry. That being said, the stuff that I like, keep in mind with Ole Miss, they played the 71st ranked schedule in the country.
I'm sorry. Are you saying you like the over or under on Wells? To clarify,
I'm saying I hate Antwain Wells.
Okay.
For beating me last week with 59 yards when his prop was 58 and a half, and he caught a pass on the last drive when they were up 30 points.
So it's a.
I haven't processed that loss yet. So
it's at 47 and a half on Underdog right now.
I know. I'm appalled. I'm appalled by him. I think that's. I wanted every reason to take an under because I don't like him at all, but I'm staying away. The prop that I do like is Carson Beck. So in 4 of the last 5 games, Carson Beck has thrown at least 40 pass attempts. The one game that he didn't was a 31-13 beating of Auburn, where they didn't really have to do much of anything to beat that hapless Hugh Freeze team. You have Carson Beck at 34 and a half pass attempts over there on ESPN Bet right now. Again, 4 of the last 5.
Underdog.
Oh, and same on Underdog. Guys, I don't know how.
That's a good price.
They're not going to be running against this Ole Miss,
and Ole Miss runs at one of the fastest tempos in the nation, which means you get the ball back a bit faster either way, right?
Get the ball a bit faster, and then at the same time, you look at what they do well and what they don't. 66th Ole Miss in passing completion rate, 67th in completions of 20-plus yards. That's the avenue of attack. It's not going after their rush defense, which is ranked 2nd in EPA per rush and 1st in yards after contact allowed. Like, are you going to pound a banged-up Trevor Etienne in that line? And if he's banged up, like, what do you have behind him? Again, it's the attrition thing with Georgia. I just think everything kind of points to that Carson Beck over 34 and a half pass attempts. Love it.
Hey, Froton, and Thor, you can answer this as well. If he's going to throw the ball 34 and a half times, are we loading up an interception for him? Because it seems as if that's been kind of his mode.
Oh, it's been 2 interceptions per game. Forget about 1. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. Yeah. And I've been the Carson Beck interception one. My stance on that is I'm going to keep betting that one until it doesn't hit. He's been throwing those things in bunches, and he's going to, like, you guys are mentioning, he's going to put the ball in the air a ton in this game. It's not only the tempo on the other side. Ole Miss is going to score. I mean, despite the injuries, that you're not going to keep a Lane Kiffin offense and one led by Jackson Dart off the scoreboard. Georgia has to answer, and what they do, it's the passing game. They throw. I mean, ever since they brought in Monken and the air raid stuff, like they've skewed towards the pass. And Carson Beck, I mean, that's the issue with his NFL draft eval, is he's been turning the ball over too much, right? I mean, like, they accrue yards there, but yeah, he makes a couple wonky decisions per game, and Ole Miss figures to be able to intercept one of those. I like both of those for sure. I might do the speculative over on Juice Wells as well, Froton's boy, just because they don't have many other guys to throw to, and that they're going to be putting the ball in the air. So on as far as this side, it's a tough one because of the injuries on Ole Miss. If both teams were at full strength, I actually had Ole Miss as the slightest bit of a favorite in this game. I'd probably lean Ole Miss still. Getting them at home, there are some holes on Georgia, and the thing I think that helps Ole Miss, it's not only I think they have the better quarterback. It's that the pressure rate that they allow is less because Kiffin will design the game plan around the pass rush he's facing. Georgia in the Texas game obviously just wrecked that offensive line. It wasn't totally fair to blame Quinn Ewers for all of that, because the one adjustment that Texas did not make in that game, the one that they did was benching Ewers. They tossed in Arch Manning for a little bit, but they could have gone to the quick hitting passing game more, or the screens or whatever, something to try to keep the pass rush at bay. They were trying to do the 5-step drops, and Ewers was dead in the water. Ole Miss will get that ball out quick. I think they're 11th in the nation in pressure rate allowed, Ole Miss is. So they should be able to mitigate that some. And Lane Kiffin, one of the better play callers in the nation. So I like them to keep this one close. It's another one I can't get there to a bet on the side. Just because of some of these those factors up in the air with the injuries. But yeah, I would lean Ole Miss. Boys, moving to our next one. This is another 3:30 kick. We're going to the ACC now. Clemson traveling to Virginia Tech and is a 6.5 point favorite in the market now. 6 live. Clemson laying 6. Clemson coming off that loss to Louisville did not look great in that game. This could be a get right opportunity. Virginia Tech, both Kyron Drones, Bayshell Tootin listed as questionable. They're also on the Virginia Tech side, their cornerback Mansour Delane is questionable. And then another thing to keep an eye on if Drones can't go here is Colin Schlee had played last week. Our boy Colin Schlee, been around the block, at least a veteran. He got banged up last week. So is the backup 100% if he has to go? We'll see. So in this one, we have a lot of questions on the home team side, which is in part why that line is up where it is. Gene, with another game with some very, very key injuries that make it a bit hard to parse out. Where would you go in this one now with Clemson laying 6 on the road in this spot?
Well, I think if Clemson was laying 6 and everybody was healthy, I'd still lean Clemson because I just think they're a better team, right? Like right now, the way they're constituted. But not only is Drones and Tootin a game time decision, like they've already said that they're going to evaluate them after warmups, which is never like a good thing, right? Tucker Holloway, Takei Heath, Nick Gallo, all of them are dealing with injuries. I don't know whether any of them are going to play. That's a lot of firepower on the offensive end from a team that doesn't exactly light up the scoreboard, right? So how are you going to be able to respond when Clemson hits you? The thing that Louisville was able to do is they were able to hit first, right? Louisville was able to hit first, and I said that I liked them in that spot last week because they had the offense to be able to go up against Clemson. I just don't know if Virginia Tech has that offense. And we've seen their defense, even when they do give that defense lead, we've seen the defense give it back. So, like, I think that this is a perfect opportunity for Clemson, as you said earlier, to get right. -6 is probably right around where I would be willing to take it at if it got over. Like if it pushed to 7 and maybe 7.5, I'd be a little bit more shaky. But at 6, I like it. I'll lay those points with Clemson on the road today.
Froton, you look at Clemson, and we talked about this on last week's show about the way that you can attack that Clemson team. Their offense has gotten a bit better this year, but their defense has sort of quietly regressed. And the one area that is the big Achilles heel, it's the explosive runs. On that Clemson defense right now, they're 111th in yards per rush when you take out the sacks, and they are 72nd in EPA per rush. They're also shockingly 114th in yards per carry after contact for a Clemson defense that has been nasty in the past. It's a bit troubling. And the reason for that, 98th in tackle success rate. Now, Virginia Tech, the status of Tootin becomes of primary importance here, because you have to go into your the quagmire of your running back depth. If Tootin is out in this game, Tootin's a very good running back, though. If they have Tootin, and then both Drones and Schlee are dual threats. So if you have one of those guys at near 100%, we'll see. But if you also had Tootin, you could project that potentially they could start to pick on that weakness. But with some of that stuff up in the air, it's hard to know. How did you come down on this one?
Well, yeah, and you mentioned Kyron Drones, who is considered a game time decision with a foot injury. And when it comes to foot injuries, obviously that's going to limit the mobility. When it comes to Drones, the 2 of the last 3 games, you had 8 carries for 6 yards last game. Against Georgia Tech, BC, he had 10 for 40, and then against Stanford, 8 for 17. With Drones having that foot injury, I mean, yeah, do they have Clemson? Are they susceptible on the ground? Yeah, sure. Do I think that makes Kyron Drones makes him special? Is his ability to be elusive, move the pocket, things of that nature? I think that's a real concern of mine. Got sacked twice last game for 19 yards. He's listed at 30.5 rushing yards. I cannot imagine a script, even against this Clemson defense, which is somewhat imbalanced, where they're going to want to run a Kyron Drones with a foot injury out there and, put him out in harm's way. Plus the fact that he's not going to have the same escapability. I think he'll probably get sacked 2, maybe 3 times. I find it hard to believe that from a coaching standpoint, you're going to want to put your quarterback into that sort of line of fire. And if he does, well, who says he won't get injured again and then we won't see Colin Schlee? This is a tenuous quarterback situation. We're starting to see more of these, as I sort of alluded to on my on-field promo from the game, UCLA, Iowa last night. I think we're going to see more of these.
I don't want to talk about that one.
I'm sorry. Oh, gosh. Yeah. Yes. Oh, well.
Yeah, I thought we had agreed pre-show that you weren't going to bring that game up.
It's the cross-country trip. This is going to get a lot of these Big Ten teams coming out to the West Coast over the course of the next couple of years.
You'll notice I don't have on Iowa regalia this morning. I'm very upset with Iowa right now.
Look, when Thor is going with Jeff Grimes over Iowa, there's a problem, okay? But so that's to tie it up. That's what I really see in this game is and it's an overarching point. It's start keeping track of these tenuous quarterback situations due to either injury late in the season where guys are just majorly banged up or just ineffectiveness and wanting to get another look at a guy who hasn't been performing particularly well. And with the injury front, that's what I'm seeing here with Kyron Drones. I don't think you're going to see much mobility. 30.5 rushing yards? Show me.
Yeah, you said it. And with those key injuries on offense for Virginia Tech, it's hard to see. You can beat, as we saw last week again. I mean, that's what we talked about. That entire handicap is like Louisville is equipped. You would project them to be able to take advantage of that Achilles heel of Clemson. With Virginia Tech skill positions in the health situation that they're in right now, I don't know that you can on their side. And then, you also have the thing of Clemson now back against the wall, coming off that loss. Like, this is their season, right? I mean, they're done. If you still have that outside shot of rallying in, if you win out in particular, and you probably have to win out if you're Clemson. So you'd expect a better effort here. And I just don't know if Virginia Tech's dinged up skill guys are able to take advantage of that Achilles heel on the Clemson side. So for that reason, I would probably lean towards laying the 6 with the road team there, and we'll flip it from last week when we were fading Clemson. My line on that one, if both teams were entirely healthy, it would have been Clemson minus 2.5. But they're not. I mean, Virginia Tech is the banged up team here, and I just don't feel like I have a good enough feel of who is going to be playing, who's not going to be playing, what percent is the person if they do play and they're not 100%. So that's why I would lean towards Clemson. And
Teuton's up at 88.5 rushing yards, 85.5 rushing yards. And what are we getting with him too? It's hard you can't take an over in spite of the poor rushing defense they'd be facing.
What are we getting with him? 210. Sorry. Anyway, the next game we wanted to talk about was Michigan and Indiana. And after we hit this one, guys out there in the audience, we will be opening the mailbag for the first time today. So get those questions in. We'll dive in here in 1 second. And before we started this one too, wanted to mention that all the tools, college football projection stuff that we have at FantasyLife, it's available on the tier 2 subscription. Code Thor20 gets you 20% off. And I think it's only $100 without a discount. So it's pretty cheap. But behind that paywall, every Monday, and this is since September, the start of the season, on Monday after the week is played, we put up the brand new win projections for every team through the end of the season is one cool thing about it. So like Indiana, for instance, we were showing them projected for double-digit wins a long time ago, like a month plus ago. And you can find values in the future market using that. You can also see my lines for the rest of the season, any game that hasn't been played yet. So there's cool stuff there. Again, code Thor20 gets you 20% off that. Last game we wanted to talk about before we open that mailbag, Michigan traveling to America's team, Indiana. All right, well, Gene would say America's team is Army, but we'll get to them later on. But the fighting smoking Signetti's here laying 14.5 points. great vibes around the Hoosier program. This week, we heard that they are engaging Kirk Cignetti in a contract extension or a rework contract. Certainly there's going to be teams contacting him after he did the Lazarus routine here with Indiana immediately. It's pretty crazy. And now laying 14.5 against Michigan. Now it's a one-handed Michigan offense, certainly, but a team that can run the ball a bit and a team that can play good defense. It's a big number, Gene. What would you do in this one?
Yeah, and here's what I would say about the whole engaging Cignetti in extensions and making sure they don't go. I think both sides have to be careful here. We've seen the guy come in hot and then fizzle out, in the subsequent years, and now you're kind of in limbo with a giant contract for a guy. We've also seen a guy get hot at a place really quickly, parlay that into another gig, and then the other gig goes terribly wrong because they weren't able to do what they did in the first time. Cignetti was able to bring over some pieces to Indiana that allowed Indiana to be good immediately. If he jumped ship right after this year and went somewhere else, don't know if he gets those same type of pieces to go with him. So be something that be really interested. I think this is a good marriage, Indiana and Cignetti. I think both of them might want to lock in for a little while. You guys know me. In Cignetti, we trust. I'm going to start making T-shirts and selling them. I think that this Indiana team stays motivated, and I put this on the bet tracker because I locked this in earlier in the week at -14 before it got that extra hook on it. Indiana is fueled by people not believing in what they do, right? Like if they're not going to believe in Indiana, look at where they're ranked at. People still don't believe that Indiana is as good as they are. If Ohio State had played the exact same schedule as Indiana, but they were undefeated, they'd be the number 1 team in the country. There's no reason why Indiana shouldn't be getting that same level of love with the fact that they play in this Big Ten. So for me, Cignetti has all of the fuel, if you will, to continue to have his kids playing hard, to continue to have them locked in. Hey, fellas, we haven't even played our best game yet. So I think just from a motivation standpoint, they look at Michigan. Hey, we get Michigan. We get to have Michigan come to us in Indiana, crippled because they can't throw the ball, defense decent but has holes. We're gonna exploit them, and when we get a chance to put our foot on their throat, we're gonna choke them all the way out. That's why I think this game ends up being a 21+ point game blowout for Indiana, because I don't think Michigan has an answer once they get down. You can't just run it once you're down 14. You're gonna have to do something else, but they can't do anything else. So what's the answer? I think Cignetti has those boys ready to go. They're going to be locked. They're going to be locked in, and they're going to run roughshod all over Michigan.
Froton, on injuries of note, Michigan, the stud cornerback Will Johnson, who has been in and out of the lineup, banged up for most of the year, he has been announced as out in this game. So you take away the lockdown corner on one side, could help out that Indiana passing game. And now you have Rourke. This is his second game back. You'd expect him to be a little bit better as well. And then the other things in the prop market that kind of interested me in this game was the first of all, they have really started to address the Colston Loveland, that's the only guy that they throw to. So his number has gone up. And then meanwhile, in a surprising development, now the Michigan running backs, they have been slashed in the market. I mean, you look right now, Khalil Mullings, 44.5, Donovan Edwards, 38.5 rushing yards. Those were guys where we had games, multiple of them earlier in this, where they were double that. But obviously they're 14 at that point. Underdogs in this game, you have to factor in the potential game script. With all this said, how do you see this game from a prop perspective?
Yeah, well, let's understand why the Michigan running backs have been suppressed. I'm even seeing 33s on Donovan Edwards. As you alluded to, we're seeing 80s and 90s previously on Khalil Mullings, but 2 games in a row of pretty mundane rushing numbers, and coupled with the fact that you're going up against an Indiana defense ranks 12th in rushing success rate, 10th in EPA per rush. But on the other side, they actually surprisingly are pretty giving when it comes to allowing you to complete a pass. As far as gaining any yardage on that pass, not so good. Like they'll allow a 62% completion rate, but still you're only, they're fourth in EPA per dropback allowed. That being said, you can complete the passes. They will allow you to do the short stuff. They will not allow you to beat you over the top. With Colson Loveland, as you mentioned, fun little stat for you, Michigan tight ends have 63 reception in 9 games. And when we say Michigan tight ends, Colson
Loveland.
Yeah. So they're averaging, 7 receptions per game to tight ends this year. When it comes to Indiana's defense, they actually allow 3.9 receptions per game to tight ends. That's the 27th worst rate amongst all FBS defenses. So the one kind of thing that they do allow is that little safety valve check down to tight ends. And as we know, that's all Michigan can do in the passing game is throw to Colson Loveland. For some reason, like 5.5 receptions, he's destroyed that each of the past 4 games. I feel like that's pretty darn low because that's what they're going to have to do. Everything points to an over for Colson Loveland on the receptions front. However, the 62.5 receiving yards, that is such a massive line for a tight end. Maybe he gets there. But I think the force-feeding aspect with the receptions, the better play. Whether or not he gets the distance, I think that's in question. But they will try to get him the ball.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I'm looking at one of the books right now, and Loveland, like you mentioned, is at the 5.5 receptions. Michigan's 2 starting receivers they're each listed at 1.5. When is the last time and that it was like totally justified where the tight end had his number was double the combined of both the receivers in a reception market like that? But that's what their passing offense is. So, you have to acknowledge reality there. And yeah, I agree with you. The Loveland over receptions, probably the look there as opposed to the yards. There's more stuff that is up in the air with the yards, obviously, and he's getting manufactured. The touch is closer. The last 4 games for Loveland, it's ever since the calendar turned to October, 6 catches, 7 catches, 6 catches, 7 catches. You're going to get the targets and almost assuredly the catches as well. If I had to bet this game, this is another one that I don't feel great about the side either way. If I had to bet it, I would lean towards Michigan with now that it's gotten to the hook. My line on this game is Indiana -12. It might be a little bit of value on Michigan. Now, the Will Johnson injury certainly hurts. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough to fade Cignetti, but it's a big number against a team that can run the ball a bit. They have Loveland and they still have the solid defense even without Will Johnson. But yeah, it's probably more of a prop game. Mullins, I tossed him the speculative over into one of my things. His numbers deflated because the last couple games the run games got wonky there, but they need to establish that again at Michigan. Okay, let's hop into the mailbag here. Appreciate everyone for watching and appreciate all the questions. Boys, we'll start out with our friend Mike Huseman, who asks us, what's up, Mike? He asks us, Ohio State is -38 at home against Purdue after a massive win last week. Could you guys see a bit of a letdown and the Boilermakers cover? Gentlemen, does anyone have a take on that Ohio State-Purdue game?
Yeah, I feel like that Purdue team, we've seen them get absolutely smoked in the first half quite a few times. Definitely that Notre Dame game comes to mind. I had taken an under position on the tight end for Max Clare for Purdue. He is, again, we're talking tight ends and pretty big lines. Tyler Warren at 52.5 is another. We obviously mentioned our boy Colson Loveland on the extended front. When it comes to Clare, he was at the 42.5 line. He's down around 34, 36.5 now. I just think it's a symptom of we don't know what we're getting out of Purdue's passing game. And that'll even go and sort of correlate to Hudson Card. I think that's probably the best value we have on the board right now on the props front. He's listed at 147.5 at Bet Online. I think it's entirely possible you see Ryan Brown, redshirt freshman, come in and at least get some kind of snaps this game, if not a straight outright split scenario. I mean, we saw a few weeks ago where Card got demoted. Graham Harrell, their offensive coordinator, got fired. So there's still a lot of kind of shuffling around in terms of that depth chart. Sure, Card is the nominal veteran presence there, but if he's out there and they're getting smoked by Ohio State, why wouldn't you put the young guy in there who's a redshirt freshman and try to get something out of him when you know what Hudson Card is? And he's not the future of the program. So I just think that 147.5 passing yardage under on Card is the play in that game.
Yeah, I had a prop angle in that one too. I was trying to look up the number I got. Let's see.
And Thor, while you're looking
it
up, I definitely think that there's an opportunity for the Boilermakers to cover right here, because Ohio State's offense just hasn't been a juggernaut style of offense this year, and they could shut it down. I do, however, think if you guys want to take the first quarter at -7.5, that's worth giving a look to. If you want to take the first half at at -18.5, I think this is a game that Ohio State gets out to a fast, quick lead, and then just kind of tries to get out of the game with everybody healthy and happy, right? So the full game -38, Boilermakers could very well keep this thing to a 35-point victory. But first quarter, first half, I think that's where you've got to eat on a spread like this in this game.
So the one I was looking for, I have a ticket on Will Howard under 278.5 passing yards. I am seeing that has come down a bit. I'm seeing 271 at Prize Picks. Let me see the domestic books. What we got live on this thing. Oh, well, okay. It's higher at some of those books. At MGM, it's 276. At FanDuel, it is also 276. I went under on that because, certainly not because I respect Purdue's defense, but because you look at the way that they have used him, they don't throw a ton with Howard when they don't have to, right? I mean, they have those two NFL running backs, and they want to get both those guys work in games like this. Will Howard, he got to 326 against Oregon because he had to throw the ball 35 times. He got to 292 against Western Michigan on 26 attempts. There was a couple really long ones in that game that juiced that up. Every other game he has gone under 276.5, where that number is. Like last week, Penn State 182, 221 against Nebraska, Iowa 209, 244 against Michigan State. The Marshall game 275, 228 against Akron. Like, I mean, and also I think this one gets out of hand. They're going to put in their backup and get some experience there. So I don't think Will Howard ends up playing this whole game. There's going to be a lot of rushing attempts. Ohio State going to be trying to get this thing over, and they'll be stampeding Purdue on the ground anyway. So that would be my betting angle on that one. Jacob Hears asks us, good morning, guys. Thoughts on James Madison -15.5. Georgia State has their fourth road game in a row. I'm going to start with our resident Georgia State expert here, Mr. Coach Gene Clemons, who has plenty of experience with Ted Hurst, coached him in high school. Gene, you have any thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I think that Georgia State needs to throw the ball to Ted more, not just because he's my guy, but because they have a lot of success when they get him the ball early. JMU -15. They haven't been the JMU of last year. But Georgia State is definitely susceptible to points. Defense hasn't been the greatest over there. I could definitely see a path to JMU -15 today. I would stay away from the line. I would go more towards the total because Georgia State can put some points on the board. And that makes it a little bit more questionable for me. -15 is a lot. and JMU hasn't been as dominant as they've been in the past. So I'd probably, if I had to pick a side on this, I'd probably lean towards Georgia State with the idea that JMU could come out here and just, blow them out. Like that's how crazy the swing is on what this game can be. But I do really like the over in this game.
Froton, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, man. No offense to Gene and his boys over there at Georgia State. I cannot back this team. They've lost 5 in a row. 2 of those 5 they've lost by the 15 points or more. I mean, they've been scoring, a decent amount scoring points, but I mean, they're going up against JMU now. They're not going to stop JMU's offense. I
Nope.
guarantee that. They're 115th in EPA per play, 127th in points per scoring opportunity allowed. It's just, they're really up against it here. And, I'm not sure if their offense, which is, like you said, it's okay. Like, at least it has some options where they can throw the ball a bit. It's still very unsettled at quarterback there. And I can't take a team that has lost 5 straight games against JMU's juggernaut. So I am going to respectfully lean on the Dukes.
I think I would, for some of those reasons, I think I would lean towards Lane as well. Sean Glenn asks us, UCF quarterback Dylan, is it Risk?
It's
Risk?
the game of
Risk.
world global domination.
It's just Risk.
Yes.
Yeah,
Risk. Okay. Dylan Risk, over 15.5 completions or over 235 passing and rushing yards. Sean says he likes both, but he is weighing his options. UCF is against Arizona State today. I'm actually on the side of that one. I took the points with UCF on Sunday. I think I got 4, which I felt really good about after Cam Scatterbo was announced as out for Arizona State, their entire offense essentially. And then one of their starting linebackers for Arizona State is also going to be out in this game. The props, Froton, do you have any thoughts on Dylan Risk, who looked good in his first game? Not only Dylan Risk in his first start, the redshirt freshman, but also the first game with the fill-in offensive coordinator. Gus fired the other offensive coordinator. Do you have any thoughts on the Risk props?
Yeah, I mean, given it has to be, start out with the caveat that they played Arizona last game, and we know just how pathetic Arizona's defense is, but they hung 56 on them. Risk completed 20 of 25 for 294, went and rushed 9 times for 55 yards. And that's when that's even sort of adding on to when he came in against BYU, where they were getting stroked, and completed 6 of 10 for 102 and 32 yards. It should be 102 and a touchdown, 31 yards rushing. So Risk has proven to at least be somebody who can pilot this offense. I think at the rate that he's at, it's very reasonable. I mean, they're going to Arizona State. They're going across the country travel-wise against a better defense than pathetic Arizona. But BYU had a pretty good defense too, and you didn't seem to have a problem moving the ball against them, even in, a situation where it was sort of a passing / run up the total script. I kind of like the over. I try to be cautious with QBs that are just coming in. We really don't know. We haven't seen them react to adversity, but I mean, I can't take an under on Risk here, and he's piloting the offense pretty well. New offensive coordinator, play caller. Give me that over.
Yeah, I think I'd probably lean that way too. He looked, and you have to give the caveat that it was against Arizona, and Arizona defense already wasn't great, and they have injuries there. But Risk looked by far the best passer that they have had on the field this year. I think it was KJ Jefferson and Ja'Cory Brown. Yep. They combined for an 8-8 TDINT rate in all their work prior to that game. And Risk, I think, is 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions now on the season after it. So he appears to give them a passing element that they didn't have before. And all they needed was like sort of a get me over pitch to keep teams off of RJ Harvey. I think that's what Gus Malzahn has been looking for. And at least the first game, it looks like that kid's giving it to him. We'll find out in this one. But Arizona State, you can get them in their pass defense. We've seen that throughout this year, so that could also point towards that. All right, let's get back into the games, boys, and everyone out there. Again, thank you for watching. We have a great audience again today. Keep typing your questions in the chat. We're going to open the mailbag up after we get through 3 more of the bigger games today. So, boys, let's get back into that. Let's go to the Big 12. We haven't talked any Big 12 today. This is a game that all of a sudden has some real intrigue, with Colorado traveling to Lubbock, Texas, to take on the Red Raiders today in Texas Tech. Colorado right now in the market favored by, we had 3.5, or 4.5. We're up to with Colorado. This one kicking off at 4 Eastern. So the market is going towards Colorado. It becomes more interesting because I was mentioning this on a show earlier this week with Claudia. We do shows on Monday and Thursday live on this channel, the Betting Life channel. But that my system, so after, and this involves Texas Tech as well, after Texas Tech upset Iowa State last weekend, Colorado all of a sudden catapulted them by 1/10 of a projected Big 12 win to be projected into the Big 12 title game in my system. Now it's extremely close. I mean, you're talking razor thin right now, but I was pretty stunned to see that just that one loss with Iowa State, and then, you know, some of the accompanying up and downs in the power rankings, and they changed the projected spreads going forward. But that Colorado, at least according to my system, has the slightly better chance than, and we're talking ever so slight, so let me be clear about that, than Iowa State to get into that Big 12 title game. Obviously, that is going to involve going in here and winning at Texas Tech, who Texas Tech all of a sudden they're looking highly intriguing after upsetting Iowa State last week. So this becomes a really big game. Gene, where do you see this one? It's and we're going to get offense here too. This is going to be a fun one. Where'd you come down on this one?
Well, any game that's involving Colorado is going to come down to one thing.
Yeah.
Can you stop their offense? Can you stop their offense? Everybody in the world knows that Shedeur Sanders wants to get the ball to Travis Hunter, and yet nobody's been able to stop him from doing it when Travis Hunter is healthy. The entire world knows that this offense likes to take shots down the field, and yet can't stop it. Why? Because Shedeur Sanders is the best quarterback in the nation. That's why. They have a bona fide killer at quarterback who doesn't care if his offensive line is blocking well or blocking poorly. He's going to make the plays necessary to get them down the field. If you can't score with Colorado, they will eventually, and I think this is the underrated thing about the team. Defensively, they will eventually figure out how to stop you. First quarter, you're running on them. Second quarter, you're running on them. They come out at halftime with a brand new thought process, a brand new philosophy. They start to shut you down. That offense keeps on rolling. And when they get their running game going, you can't stop that offense. If they can run on you too, you can't stop the offense. I think this is a perfect opportunity for Colorado, coming off a bye week, Texas Tech coming off the high of beating Iowa State, for Colorado to roll into Texas and get a W. And not just get a W, but get a convincing W. I could see them winning this game by 10 points versus Texas Tech. I agree with you, Thor. There's going to be points in this game. So if you like overs, that 62.5, that's a juicy little over to look into taking, because there'll be points in this game. But I think ultimately Colorado will just overwhelm Texas Tech, who will not be able to continue to score with them.
Gene, two follow-up questions with regards to the futures market on that, with that being your pick with Colorado. I have had a supposition also, and I've repeated it over and over again on our shows, that I didn't think Travis Hunter could win the Heisman if Colorado did not make the CFP. But now that it looks theoretically possible for Colorado to get into the Big 12 title game, all of a sudden you would just have a one-off where you win that game and you're in the CFP. You would also have one more game to accrue stats. So Hunter right now is the or at least he was a couple of days ago, the co-favorite with Cam Ward to be the Heisman. So, I'm wondering what you think about that. I was close. I think it was close to 2-1. And then the other one, Colorado, I'm looking up the Big 12 odds. I think are they plus 3-1 right now to win the Big 12, Colorado. Do you see, again, with Colorado being your pick here, do you see any, impetus? Do you feel any impetus of putting part of your bet or doing another bet on either Colorado to win the Big 12 or Travis Hunter to win the Heisman before this thing?
I think Colorado's definitely a live dog to win the Big 12. That's clear now, right? Like this isn't a song and dance. This isn't histrionics. They have a good football team. Are they perfect? No. But the thing is that nobody's perfect in the Big 12. And so because nobody's perfect I would love to see a Kansas State Colorado rematch. Like I would love to see that again. I think that game goes differently if they play again. As far as Travis Hunter, if they I don't think they have to make the college playoff in order for him to win it. I don't know how he doesn't win it just off the strength of we've never seen anyone do this in modern football. If he can't win the Heisman, then the Heisman Trophy is a sham. If Travis Hunter playing full-time cornerback where nobody wants to throw at him and playing full-time wide receiver where he's one of the best wide receivers in the nation, if he can't win it, if a guy who possibly is going to win the Biletnikoff Award and the Thorpe Award?
Yep.
Like he has a legitimate chance to win both awards, but he doesn't win the Heisman. I think a lot of voters will vote for him just to keep the award from feeling like a sham where all we're going to do is just give it to the best quarterback a year. I think that's why Woodson won it the year that he won it, because people went, well, if we don't give it to him, then when will we ever give it to somebody different? I think that'll be the same type of thing with Travis Hunter. And I don't think it'll take getting to the CFP, because I think last year proved you don't have to be in championship contention in order to win the Heisman.
But one slight difference. It was Michigan that year. I mean, weren't they a colossus?
Oh yeah, no, they were. They won. I think they won the national championship. They won the Rose Bowl that year for sure. Like I get that. But I'm saying, like, with Jaden Daniels winning last year and LSU not really having a chance to like go to the playoffs because they had multiple losses, right? With him winning it, that opens the door for people to say, okay, you don't have to be on the championship team in order to win the Heisman, right? So now when you put somebody that's doing something so unique, something you probably will never see anybody do at that level again, you know what? I think this is the time that you give it to a guy. Now, if they collapse down the stretch, that's different, right? If they end up collapsing and end up at 7 and whatever, but if they're sitting at 9 wins and Travis Hunter is one of the best wide receivers in the country and one of the best cornerbacks in the country playing the amount of snaps that he plays, I don't know. I just don't see how you don't give it to him in that situation.
Froton, the prop market here, and Gene was alluding to it with the Colorado passing offense. This is a fun matchup for the Colorado passing offense. Now, some of this has already been baked into the numbers, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, Texas Tech, the yards per dropback, 124th pass defense for Texas Tech, 124th in that, 110th in EPA per dropback, 103rd in passing success rate. This is a terrible pass defense for Texas Tech, who has been had by anyone that can throw. Not many can throw as good as Colorado, and it's their one superpower. How do you see? Can you get over on that crazy inflated Shadir number or the crazy inflated Travis Hunter? Fair numbers, but big numbers when you look at them, or are you looking elsewhere in the prop card for this game?
Yeah, man. I mean, there aren't going to be a lot of unders I'll be entertaining in this game. I'll say that much at the very least, especially, I mean, when it comes to Texas Tech's defense, Joey McGuire is a defensive head coach, but he has handed the reins over to Zach Kittley because they have stopped worrying about defense. I mean, Abilene Christian put up 506 passing yards against them. Cincinnati, 426.
Maverick McIntyre, my boy.
Maverick McIver. Yes,
McIver,
exactly.
yeah.
Close enough. Cincinnati put up 426. TCU put up 344. Everybody is outperforming the regular metrics out of it. Even Arizona State threw for 282.
Shadir's at 332.5.
He's actually, what's interesting about his line, which I'm getting to now, you can find him at 334.5 on Bet Online. You can find him at 324.5 at a lot of different other places. Still a 10-yard spread because of, the variance here. Like, the over, is it too much? Is it not enough? I mean, I would probably have to target the 324.5 over. I can't take an under against the Texas Tech Raiders defense. Obviously, we were talking about Hunter. I have a Heisman ticket on him that I took out on January 5th on this year for 100-1 odds. So I am rooting for Travis Hunter to win the Heisman, whether or not. Sure, do I have a vested interest? Yes, but hey, that's what it's all about, baby. I feel like they're going to force feed him once the Dion knows that his adopted child is up for the Heisman, along with his real, regular birth child. He's going to make sure that those guys are eating as much as they possibly can. It's just self-interest at that point. So I would think, I lean over on Shedeur. If I was going to go with another prop in this game, I just can't stand Baron Morton. I just can't stand him. I want the Will Hammond era to begin in earnest. He came in when Morton got hurt 2 games ago, and he was just magnificent. Can run the ball, adds a different dynamic than that statue Morton. So I'm hoping he goes under his 256.5, 258.5 mark. But it's not an official play, but that is just my dream. I want Will Hammond.
Yeah, for me, I would lean Colorado. I'm not showing line value on it, but that is one of the more pronounced mismatches that you'll see of any game. The strength of that Colorado passing offense, the top 3 passing offense in America, against one of the worst pass defenses, certainly in the Power 4, but in the entire FBS, probably a bottom 20 type pass defense. I don't know how Texas Tech stops Colorado whatsoever. And sure, Taj Brooks, he'll get some yards, but I think one of the issues, the other issues for Texas Tech is when their offense is working, it's because they can use Taj Brooks to chip away at the sticks and then give easier passes for Morton. I don't trust Morton at all either. And when they don't have that, when the game script starts flipping against them, one example of this, there's a couple this year, but the Wazoo game, for instance, all of a sudden it started to get away from them. In the second half, they had to throw. They couldn't, Anyway, Taj Brooks didn't play in that game, now that I'm remembering, but it's the same point. When they don't have Taj Brooks, when the game script goes away from it, they're in trouble, and I think they're going to be in trouble in this one. All right, boys, the game of the day. We're now moving into the evening, 7:30 Eastern kickoff. Alabama against LSU. You talk about enormous implications here. This is a true loser leaves town game. The loser is done. Their college football playoff, is over with, and the winner is going to catapult up in the rankings next week. Alabama was the last wild card that the committee had in this past week on Tuesday when they unveiled it. And I think LSU was the number 2 team, like in the first, out or whatever. They were near the top of that list. Enormous implications here, and a very tight spread. Live, it was 2.5 before we started. Let me see if it's moved at all. I'm still showing 2.5. There's 3 at one book, but it's the juice dots. Gene, with Alabama laying 2.5 on the road in Baton Rouge, a night game in Baton Rouge. Who do you like in this one?
Night game, Baton Rouge.
Yep.
Bananas. The best, and you guys could correct me if I'm wrong, the best atmosphere in college football. LSU, night game, Baton Rouge. It's going to be rough for Alabama. It's going to be rough for Alabama, but also there's a lot of pressure on Gus Nussmeier. To perform. Like when we listen to the way in which they talk about him, you would think he's doing no wrong, and then he's doing wrong, right? Like he's doing great, then he's doing wrong. And I think this game is going to come down to which quarterback makes the least amount of mistakes. And I think that's going to fall on Alabama. I think Alabama is going to do something that not a lot of people do, and that's go into Baton Rouge at night and get the victory over LSU. I think Milroe outplays Nussmeier in Baton Rouge to keep Kalen DeBoer from having to worry about like somebody putting for sale signs on his yawn.
So Froton, we have a couple injuries I wanted to toss out, mostly on the LSU side. CJ Daniels, the standout receiver, probable to play, and Chris Hilton Jr. It looks like he will get more of a workload, at least according to some of the coaches' comments. Played 24 snaps last week in his first game, had 2 catches of the season after coming back. Also of note, the starting left guard for LSU, Garrett Dillinger, was hurt in week 9, and it looks like that he will indeed be out for this game. Those are the big ones. Obviously, Harold Perkins Jr. has been out for a while. Froton, we have a little bit of shakeup there with the LSU receiving core, and that's the LSU needs to win this one probably through the air, but it's a really good Alabama pass defense. How are you seeing the props in this one?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm hearkening back to last year's game when it comes to my evaluations here. And if you remember, Alabama won 42-28. Jaden Daniels is running wild, took that massive hit, which knocked him out of the game. But there's also another quarterback running wild in that game, and that was none other than Jalen Milroe. If you remember, he ran 20 times last game for 155 yards and 4 touchdowns. Wow. I mean, I'm not saying Milroe does that every single game in, game out, but he did it last year, and when they need to break him out and let him loose, they will let him loose on you. And you can find right now, I'm looking at 48.5 is the low I'm seeing for his rushing yardage total. I think you have to take a speculative over on the rushing yardage total. And even we got a couple questions in the chat about potential ladder plays. Rest easy, my friends.
Oh, you love your ladders.
Jalen Milroe, ladder rushing yards, go over 100. Multiply your money. Why not take the 100 rushing yards over on Jalen Milroe here? Let's go.
There's speaking of the rushing one, some other ones in the, you look deeper in his market. I'm looking at Underdog right now. 17.5 yards longest rush for Milroe is another option. There.
Stop it. Stop it. 17.5? Sure. Right. 150 last game. He's going to go for 118.5. Shut up. Stop it. Bet it now.
Yeah, I agree with that. He gonna be moving around. The side of this one, it's a tough because you have the night game in Baton Rouge, of course. But yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about that LSU run defense and in particular, with Milroe. Now, the thing that LSU has been decent at on defense is they're okay against the explosive passes, and obviously that's something that Alabama does. But the yards that Alabama will be able to manufacture here, this one's probably a straight stay away for me. My line is right on this thing, like at the Alabama -2.5. I do think it's more of a prop game, and probably looking at both those quarterbacks. They're going to have LSU is going to have to throw. Nussmeier's probably going to throw an interception too in this game because the defense is so good, and he's going to have to take some chances, but they're going to accrue some yards. And yeah, Jalen Milroe is going to be running around. Audience out there, again, everyone, thanks for tuning in. We're going to talk about one more game, and then we're going to open up the mailbag. So keep typing your questions in if you're watching us on YouTube. And we're also going to get Gene's FCS play of the day in just 1 second here. But really quickly, wanted to go around and talk about the last one we had on the schedule here, 8 p.m. Eastern kickoff tonight. Washington traveling all the way across the country to Penn State. Penn State live in the market right now. We have, just want to make sure nothing's moved on us, 12.5 12.5 to 13. There's a book or two that has 13 on Penn State, but probably 12.5 the consensus line. Gene, with Penn State laying 12.5 in Beaver Stadium against Washington this evening. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, it's been difficult for Penn State with these double-digit spreads, right? Like they haven't exactly they haven't exactly done anything phenomenal with these double-digit spreads, but they're coming off of a loss, and a loss that has to hurt. It has to sting. It had to have focused and galvanized this team to go, hey, we've got to execute better and put the the ball in the end zone when the ball needs to be in the end zone. For Washington, there's kind of been this year, right? Like they're not a bad team, but they're certainly not like a great team. I think it hurts the West Coast a lot less coming to the East Coast to play, or to the Eastern time zone to play. It definitely hurts the Eastern time zone people going all the way to the West Coast to play. We've seen that now play out a bunch of times. So with that, I think Washington will afford themselves pretty well. If I'm leaning aside here on this, I'm probably leaning Washington, because can Penn State beat them by 2 touchdowns? Yes. Will Penn State win by 10? Most likely.
Froton, did you have any player prop action on this one?
I always do. Yes, I have to. It is in my contract, I believe, with FantasyLife.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, with Washington, keep in mind, this team is 5-1 at home, but on the road they have been absolute trash. And now they're traveling across the country, as we've talked about a couple times on this show, all the way to Pennsylvania to play in Happy Valley and Beaver Stadium, a very inhospitable atmosphere.
That's very true.
That scares me. It scares me a little bit. What I do like, and we've heard this guy's name, I mean, every show it seems like we're talking about him, a different angle, but I've got yet another angle on Tyler Warren. I know we've tried yardage, tried the receptions. Well, I have another angle. Underdog, our friends, nice enough. But Tyler Warren at 10.85 fantasy points. And since I'm a college fantasy guy, we all know that. I figure I might as well give it a little shine here. 10.85 fantasy points. They give him goal line carries. They manufacture touches for him in every way, shape, or form. And against a Washington pass defense is one of the truly elite in the country. They're not going to mess around taking deep shots to Harrison Wallace or throwing the ball to the boundaries. They're going to keep it to what works. And that is simply Tyler Warren. I also think you're going to see a lot of the run game. Again, as Thor and I like to point out, the imbalanced defenses. Excellent pass D, just a trash run D. You're going to see a lot of running from Penn State, wanting to control the clock and control the flow of this game. I think you see plenty of the 2 running backs, which means I'm actually taking an under on Drew Aller, 208.5 passing yards as well.
The Froton, did you have anything on Singleton? Singleton's been cut all the way to 58.5. Last game against it was Ohio State, but 15 and then 49 the one before that. And obviously he had been dinged up prior to that. You got anything on Singleton, or would you stay away because it's been wonky recently?
Third down passing back, Nicholas Singleton.
Yeah.
Right? That's what he is. I mean, he's catching passes now. That's the role he's been used. Katron Allen has been the hammer between the tackles, and they try to get Singleton out there in space. So his, the carry distribution, the way he's been used, it hasn't been favorable for that. But I do think that the overall rushing volume means you can't take an underplay on him. So if that's something that you're leaning towards, it follows the logical line of thinking of how this game script is going to go.
Yeah, you could do the Big Ten tight end 2-step with the over on Tyler Warren, 5 receptions, and the over on Colson Loveland. Was that 5.5? On
5.5. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, on Loveland. I agree with you. You against Washington, you can't test the outside corners. They're studs. Yeah, Washington has one of the truly elite pass defenses in America. But yeah, if you avoid those guys, the safer stuff in that, i.e. Tyler Warren or your third down boy Nicholas Singleton, maybe on some dump offs there, I think that's how you're going to play it on offense. You're the favorite here. You don't have to do anything else. You just play this thing conservative, run the ball. So I definitely agree with all those angles. All right, let's Gene, we'll go to you for FCS play of the day, and then we're going to open up the mailbag one last time. Yeah,
I think there's some really good games out here this week. If you can find Jackson State on the line on a line versus versus Mississippi Valley State, definitely take that. Doesn't even matter what the line is. Morgan State minus 13.5 on the road versus Delaware State. They had a massive comeback last week where I thought their entire season was going to implode versus Norfolk State. They were down 3 touchdowns before they even knew it with all these turnovers. Were able to come back and get that win. That's going to fuel them running into that that pivotal matchup versus Howard down the line. But I always say, when you find the GOAT, you gotta keep on hitting the GOAT. When you find the guy that's the trash matchup, you just keep going at him when you're on the basketball court. When you find the offensive lineman that's the weak point, you just keep rushing at him when you're playing football. And when you find a team that's just not that good, you have to keep stringing out the bets versus them. And that, my friend, is Murray State. Murray State, you're back again. I'm sorry. I feel bad for the people on Murray State, but I don't feel bad for my wallet because they keep on cashing. And today, against a 7-2 Missouri State team that has given the Dakotas, they've given the Dakotas some run. They're 23.5 at Murray State. It doesn't matter that they're at Murray State. Murray State is already folded on the season. Missouri State will come in and run roughshod all over Murray State. That is my FCS play of the week. Go ahead and get it in and count that money right now.
Love it. Let's hop back into the mailbag. Let's see. What do we got here? Just one second. I'm trying to find my spot here. Boys, did you see any other questions in the chat you wanted to hit as I'm trying to find some?
Yeah, it was Austin Rokas that asked about the North Texas Army total. Can't fade the stimulus schools on Veterans Day weekend. We might have a little bit of talk about that later. Who knows? But I will say that this total is a total that I think can't be high enough. Not to mention that most North Texas games go over 70 points, right? This started at 63.5. That's why I locked it in earlier in the year. Earlier in the week. It's up to 66.5 right now, I believe. I still don't think that's high enough. North Texas, the way they play, their pace, they're going to score points. And it doesn't even matter who the Army quarterback is. If it's the backup.
Well, it's going to be Daly.
I know it's going to be Daly. I'm just saying it doesn't even matter who it is because they're going to be able to run against North Texas because North Texas doesn't stop anybody from running. Like they give up the run. They're susceptible to the run. And so with Daly back, that means that the trickery of the Army's run game is back and the physicality of the Army's run game is back. I like that over. I think that over is an absolute total that you got to smash if you can.
Let's see. We had one. Historical anomalies that says, do you like the Beck and Nussmeier over 22 completions or 34.5 completions? We had talked about the Beck one. Froton, did you hit on Nussmeier with those two in particular?
Nuss. Well, I think he will certainly be in a script where they're going to have to, put the pedal to the metal, as we talked about with the game last year. That kind of manifested with Jaden Daniels breaking the pocket and running a lot. Obviously, we know Nussmeier doesn't do that, so they are going to have to gas it up. I wouldn't be taking an under on them. So, 22.5, that's what you got to lean on. I think that's okay in and over.
Mike Huseman asks us, UTEP -5 at home against Kennesaw. Any dumpster diving advice on this one? I think that that's about as deep as you can get. The UTEP quarterback, I think he's back for this one. Saw some news about that. Any of you guys have thoughts on the true marquee game of the week this week?
Kennesaw has been really bad on the road. I mean, they've been bad everywhere except that one time
against Liberty
where they beat Liberty.
Yeah.
That was their entire season, but they've been bad on the road. Especially, I think this is a good opportunity for UTEP to get a win. And if they win versus Kennesaw, it's likely going to be more than a touchdown. I'd be willing to lay that -5 with UTEP at home versus Kennesaw. That is dumpster diving though, Mike.
Yeah, that's about yeah.
That is trash on trash right there.
My line on that one is UTEP -2. So I don't know. I guess I'll lean towards taking the points with all kind of saw America's team. One last one here, or two last ones we'll toss up. Jaden Goen said thoughts on Cam Ward under 26.5 rushing yards. And then there was also where'd that other one go?
FSU.
Oh yeah, someone asked us about 7.5 points for Florida State as their team total in this game. Froton, let's start with you with the Cam Ward rushing. Do you have any thoughts on the rushing in that one?
I haven't done much with his rushing over-unders this year. It's just the nature of the QB rushing. I want to make sure that I feel pretty secure about it if I'm going to go with it. So, I don't have a particular lean on that. I usually kind of look at under, I would suppose, with all the passing attempts he takes. But I mean, if somebody has a better feeling on it, then that's their prerogative. But I usually lean under on his rushing yardage simply because of the passing volume, leaving the potential for sacks.
I would, as far as the Florida State team total, it's like, oh man, it's hard to think about them scoring at all. That offense that we've seen against, you're in South Bend today against a really good Notre Dame defense. But I mean, fluky stuff can happen. A special teams thing, a defensive thing. Maybe, I don't know. At the 7, I'd probably stay away from that personally. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
No.
Yeah, we're all gonna stay away. Yeah. So let's Froton, let's hop into props really quick that we haven't hit on. I'll get mine out of the way first. The ones that I have not hit. I don't think we've mentioned these ones yet. I think all the other ones that I've had we have. I did a 2-step that I really liked this week. Both these were in my top 10 bets column of. So this is Cincinnati against West Virginia today. And by the way, West Virginia, there's quarterback Garrett Green not playing today. We're getting that Marischal kid again. I like Brendan Sorsby over 256.5, 255.5, wherever it is right now. And then Xavier Henderson over, I got it at 54.5 receiving yards. I did see that was a bit up today. But we have the correlated thing there, and we have it going against. I mentioned that Texas Tech is one of the worst pass defenses in the Power 4. I couldn't say worse because I think West Virginia is. West Virginia is. You talk about a funnel defense. West Virginia is 23rd in EPA against the run, so they have a really good run defense. They are horrid against the pass. In fact, they are dead last, 134th in the FBS and EPA per dropback. And then Cincinnati's passing game, number 8 success rate, number 20 EPA per dropback. And this game, at least earlier, I think that the line is still beneath 7. So, you think maybe they won't totally run away with it, although we'll have to see with Marischal. That the only concern you'd have is that it gets so out of hand that, they're not throwing into the second half, but they could get there pretty easy. They're not going to need a lot of attempts on that. Cincinnati, they played in 3 games this year, decided by single digits. UCF, Texas Tech, Pitt. In those 3 games, Sorsby averaged 321.6 passing yards per game, and Henderson averaged 77 receiving yards per game. So those are my props. Froton, any other ones that you wanted to empty really quick? Then we'll get to plays of the day.
Oh gosh, I have too many to empty. Okay, let's go with Eric.
Got to be quick hitters because we're running out of time.
People are going to hate me for this. Eric McAllister over 42.5 receiving yards. With Savion Williams switching over to rushing, he's been the only guy who's beaten that almost, I think, all but 2 times. Alan Bowman, my gosh, Alan Bowman. We're still getting Alan Bowman lines.
Yeah.
We're still getting the British comedy legend. We're still getting the lines. I had put him out at 259.5. He was up there. He's since gone down, but I'm going to recommend another one. Let's go with Alan Bowman. Our friends at ESPN Bet still haven't figured out how this whole thing works, the betting thing with college football. 37.5 pass attempts for Alan Bowman. There's no way he plays this entire game. They're going to get crushed today. And Alan Bowman, retread city, is not going to take every single passing snap, which means he's not going to get the 38 pass attempts because he's not good enough to do that. They're just trotting him out as that senior. Muliaki Smith, do not quote me on that name. Last game, got the last drive. I think he at least gets 2 drives this game. If you figure there's 10 in each game, 2 of those going to somebody else who is an Alan Bowman at least, dude, he ain't getting the 38 pass attempts. Forget about that. We're going to go next. Xavier Henderson. I can't help but take a speculative over on his 55.5 rushing yards because of what Thor talked about with West Virginia's 133rd ranked pass defense, 55.5 yards. Like Sorsby is going to be whipping it around there. I feel good about that. And we're going to go with Sean Parker. We're going all the way, Sean, here. Wazoo. They're playing Utah State. Excuse me. Yeah, it's Utah State today.
Yeah,
I think they are the worst.
They're the worst.
The worst.
Number one.
And overall defense, they're the worst. Yeah.
Oh,
horrible,
they're just
horrible.
everything about them is pathetic. 54.5 rushing yards?
Except Spencer Petras, my boy.
Except you are a company man when it comes to
I am a company man.
Iowa's Vonnegut Writing School, sir.
Exactly.
Graduate of. So, I mean, I got to take away Sean Parker against that pathetic defense just on principle at that point. So, those are the ones I'm going with. I still got a best bet I'm holding off for, though.
I love it. Well, let's, that being said, by the way, they just yanked. Oh, that's so funny. They yanked the Alan Bowman pass attempt.
I'm sorry,
right there. That is
sorry. It's my fault.
It popped up on my. That's actually funny.
They popped right up. Yeah,
they
literally did. I
They're
looked down
listening.
like that was legitimately funny. Gene, let's
We love ESPN Bet. ESPN Bet, thank you for putting out all these passing, attempt lines. Thank you, ESPN Bet.
That was absolutely incredible. Let's plays of the day. We'll kick it off with Coach's Corner, which Gene, I don't know if you've missed one of these all season long. Tell the people where you're going today.
Yeah, well, last week we had a setback, right? And before I just want to make sure, Fantasy Life, the bet tracker. That's where you can see all of our bets that we put in. All week, best bets. Go and check it out. Some other plays that I like today: Jackson State -10 at Louisiana Tech. Boise State's going to blow the brakes off Nevada, 24.5 points. Yes, take it. UNLV back off of the bye week after letting one go versus Boise State. Traveling to Hawaii, they'll put up 21 plus versus Hawaii. I'll take that as well. BYU Utah, we didn't talk about it, but the rivalry is back. I'll take BYU to continue the unbeaten streak this year. Oregon's going to mollywop Maryland because Maryland's not really that good. We talked about the over. And then Miami at Georgia Tech. They've got something to play for because they remember last year. They're going to blow out Georgia Tech today. But it is Veterans Day weekend. And on Veterans Day weekend, with the return of Captain America, right?
Yep.
These Army boys don't understand how to lose. You put Captain America on the bench, and they said we're still winning. We're not gonna go down to Air Force. We don't care what the game script looks like. They said we're still winning. Now you're gonna bring in this highfalutin, high-powered. They're gonna run to Texas. Guess who's from Texas? That's right, Captain America. He's from Texas. Daly's going home, baby. And if he's going home to take on the Green Machine, you know what? I'm going with Army, but not so fast, my friends, because Navy has had 2 bad games. They had a bad game versus Notre Dame where they turned the ball over 1 million times. And then they had a game last week versus Rice where it started and stopped and started and stopped and started and stopped. And before we knew it, like 7 hours later, they got beat by Rice. You don't think they're upset right now? You don't think they're mad? Yeah, that's right. The Service Academy stimulus package is back, and I'm going with a 2-team parlay. Army -6 at North Texas. Navy -3.5 at who? South Florida. Who are they? The Bulls. We're going to be eating some good steak tonight, baby. We're going to be eating some good steak tonight. On Veterans Day, the Service Academy stimulus package lives on. Get your 2-pick ready. Enjoy. and salute.
Wow, that's a tough act to follow, Froton. But you're torpedo today.
A highfalutin act, if you
Yes.
would. Wow,
yes.
I didn't have highfalutin on my bingo card today.
No, yeah.
But that's why we tune in, don't we? Well, here's another reason why we tune in, guys. Thor, I don't even know if you're aware of this. I think I'll be. This is actually I'm revealing this to you live on the air.
Ooh.
All right, so we're gonna get your genuine reaction to this play.
Oh boy,
you ready?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Our friends at Bet Online, have given us an early Christmas present.
Okay,
they have hung your friend and mine, the great Drew Pine.
Oh my boy,
his 0.5 interceptions line at -120 to the over.
Wow.
Just so you know, Drew Pine, when he took over, this is only a half of play against Alabama last game when he took over for just a battered Brady Cook, and he's starting this game. He went 6 for 12 passing, completion for 42 yards. But that doesn't tell the whole story. He didn't actually go 6 of 12. He went 9 of 12 passing because 3 of his 12 passes, 25% of them, were intercepted by Alabama. Yeah, that's right. 3 passes were intercepted out of 12 last game that he was there. Good luck. Best of luck keeping him off the interception board.
Yeah, you ain't going to do it.
Over interceptions, one of the stupidest lines I've seen in a long time. Good luck with that.
Drew, Captain James T. Kirk Pine. Absolutely. You have to.
Correct.
You might not get another chance to beg any interception money.
Get out the Pine
Mr.
salt.
Pine. Exactly. Yeah, you got to hit that one. For me, look, I swore off my Jayhawks, earlier this season, said I wouldn't watch them until they fired Jeff Grimes. They've been showing some fight. I like them in this matchup today against Iowa State. I mean, famous last words, but I got them at 3 earlier this week. It's at down to 2.5 now. But the play that I like more than that in this game, and it's going to be my play of the week, is Devin Neal rushing over. I think I got 81.5 over 81.5, something like that earlier this week. I have seen that. It was a weird line movement. Froton, I talked with you on the phone about this a couple of days ago. It had come down to 76.5. Then it was up over then it shot up at a couple of different books. I'm trying to see where it is on. It's like at 84.5 on Prize Picks. I think it's a little above that at Underdog. The 2 domestic books though, at FanDuel and Caesars, it's still at 82.5. I like the over on that for a couple different reasons. Iowa State, they have a really good pass defense. Their run defense is where you need to attack them. Texas Tech did that to great effect last week. UCF did it to great effect the week before that. That's what Kansas needs to do to keep this game close and potentially upset them. And Devin Neal is an NFL caliber back. He is going to be a middle round pick in April. Kansas knows the path here to ambushing Iowa State, and that is with Devin Neal on the ground. So I think Devin Neal goes nuts today. I think he tops 100 yards. Speaking of the ladder, I would ladder Devin Neal up a little bit, but I love him over the low 80s one. And, again, the other reason is I don't think the game script flips against them. Kansas has been, they've been competitive throughout the season. It's just a bunch of these close losses. They just lost close to Kansas State. They had a procession of 1-possession losses earlier this season. You look at second order wins, between those two teams, it's way closer than, of course, the standings. I think Iowa State's like 5.8, 5.9. Kansas is like 4.1 against a tougher strength of schedule. So I think this game is closer. I think because of that, I think Devin Neal, you're going to be handing him the ball into the fourth quarter against not a very good run defense. That is my play of the day. We'll pray that my Jayhawks don't let me down on that one.
I did want to just clarify one thing. I apologize. I said Bet Online. I'm looking in the chats. Drew Pine is -120 at Bovada, instead of Bet Online. And if you go over to Caesars, he's -135. So apologies. It was the other B offshore. Bovada, not Bet Online. My bad.
Yeah, glad we cleaned that one up. And audience, everyone, thank you for watching. We had a great audience once again today. Thank you for all your questions. We kept you guys a little bit late today. I feel like the teacher that keeps people after school. So we've run more than out of time. But for my co-host Eric Froton of NBC Sports, the coach Gene Clemons, I'm Thor Nystrom. Thanks again for joining us. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. Let's go cash some tickets.